We were lied to about the Philippe Mesar situation as he speaks out on the crazy trade rumors surrounding him going to Winnipeg, plus his current status as of this summer with the Montreal Canadiens and his plans for next year. We're going to get into all of that. Plus, Scott Wheeler has released his top 20 goalie prospect rankings, and Habs prospect Jacob Fowler is a bit higher than I think we thought, which is just amazing. That plus a lot more all coming up on this episode of Habs Digest. And the first thing I want to get into, Jesse, is another sort of player ranking. And honestly, this one's not so nice compared to the Jacob Fowler stuff we'll get into later. As always, the timestamps for Mesar and Fowler will be down below. Feel free to skip ahead if you want. But this comes from JFresh. Now, JFresh was on TSN 690 a couple days ago saying the Habs are on an upswing. He's actually got a lot of praise for Montreal, but his fans, not so much. His fan vote, now this is not JFresh, these are his fans. They voted on the top defensemen, forwards, and goalies in the NHL. You'll notice there's only one Montreal Canadien on the list for defense. Matheson at 68th, below the likes of Rasmus Sandin, Brandon Carlo, Sean Walker. Oh my, I mean, look, maybe some of these guys are okay, but like, my gosh, way too low. If you look at goalies, Monty's the only goalie there, and he is 34th behind Jake Allen. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen at 17 is pretty high. Laurent Brossoit, Anthony Stolarz ahead of Montembeault. And finally, the forwards. This one's, I guess, a little more reasonable with Caufield there. I think Joel Eriksson should be higher, but Caufield around Lindholm, Bennett, Eriksson, cool. But Suzuki at 43, Jesse, I think he can be higher too. I think just maybe the general fans are tired of a Montreal Canadiens team that is losing a bunch. Fans of other teams just don't pay attention, so they don't know how good these guys are. But I couldn't help but look at this list and just think, oh my gosh, I can't wait for these Habs to continue to prove the people wrong.
They're young guys. Their time is coming, right? They're going to be on the rise. There's going to be a lot more eyeballs on the Montreal Canadiens as they continue to kind of get on that upswing. Mm-hmm. Now, we know for sure, kind of looking at this, the Toronto Maple Leafs fans were coming out, hot and heavy in these rankings, having Wall ranked so high, Sandin ranked so high as well. But we know, like, with Matheson's point production, even though sometimes we're the first ones to say that we'd like to improve some parts of a defensive game, we definitely feel like he should be up there. I think considerably. He is criminally underrated, and sometimes even a little bit underappreciated by us for just the phenomenal season he had last year. I think he's going to continue that this year here coming up as well. Really the leader of that young decor for us right now as he's kind of passing that torch from David Savard, right? So, for me, it's like I definitely like to see Suzuki still get a little bit more love because he had an unreal year, like with his point production, but just also his defensive play. I think he still doesn't get enough respect for that side. We know there's lots of good players in the NHL, of course. It was the fan that's voted. It's always fun to kind of get that input and everything else. But at the same time, we like to see some of our boys just a little bit higher.
Yeah, and I know this is a Montreal show, but you guys know I like Minnesota as well. Joel Eriksson is very similar to Suzuki in a lot of ways. He's consistently on the Selke ballot, and he had 30 goals and 66 points last year, and he's at 76. Insane stuff. But yeah, I think some love could have been shown a bit more to Montreal Canadiens. Sam Montembeault especially, my gosh. Oh, to see him below Jake Allen, I know Jake had a great end of the season with New Jersey, but it is what it is. Let us know throughout all of these what your maybe biggest piece of disrespect you think is. For me, it's Matheson, Jesse. I think he should be top 30 in the league, and I don't really think there's any question about that, but maybe some of you will disagree. But we'll move on to the second topic of the video, and we're going to flip this on its head. We're going to get really positive like we love to do on this show, and it has to do with Mr. Jacob Fowler. So Scott Wheeler, as we know yesterday, did his top 100 skater prospects, in which Montreal featured heavily with 6 players on the list, including Ivan Demidov, sitting there at number 3. But you know who else is number 3, Jesse? It's Jacob Fowler. Jacob Fowler sneaks in as the number 3 best drafted goalie in the NHL. He did the top 20. He's the top of tier 2, just behind Wallstedt and Askarov. And I think Wallstedt and Askarov, I would agree, are on a different level. Those guys, they're both basically NHL ready, and they both already have crazy numbers to back themselves up. But after just one season of college, Scott Wheeler was ready enough to say, nah, this Fowler guy is great. 3rd round pick, well, that's going to go down. If all things turn out the way people seem to think they're going to turn out, that's going to go down as one of the best picks in the entire draft. To see Montreal, Jesse, having the number 3 skater, the number 3 goalie, and, when we're talking about Hudson himself, still one of the top defenseman prospects in the league, it's almost incomprehensible to say that it's the Montreal Canadiens that has this kind of prospect pool. I'm almost in shock by this.
And that's why people are saying, like, ça sent la coupe. Like, not right now, but, like, we're getting there, right? Because those young players, when you kind of get them all at the same time, we got a nice core as it is, but we see our reinforcement with these players coming up. I love to see Jacob Fowler listed there with, as one of the best prospects coming into the NHL. Those two other guys ahead of him were actually in the list for some of the best goalies currently in the NHL, which is absolutely unreal. But, Wheeler had some really nice kind of feedback on Fowler's game. And basically he was saying, like, this is a type of guy where if he sees it, he saves it. He's not afraid to stack the pads, do those really phenomenal kind of like, game-saving type of moves, right? Another thing he said, though, is like good positioning, being so square to the shooter. Now, who does that remind you of? No pressure, Josh, but our boy Cowboy Carey Price himself, right? As good positioning as him, right? As the man here. So, I mean, obviously, like some amazing praise kind of coming through. And to be honest, I think he's rightfully there. I think he really deserves this.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. He said if he can get in position, he's going to stop the puck. Now, I will say Price probably had a bigger flair for the dramatic. And I will say Price was a much better prospect than Fowler, even respectively. Fowler was great. But it's so awesome to see him up there so high. There's so many high expectations on him, and I don't want to put too much pressure on him too early, but all the signs are pointing to him being a very solid goalie at the next level. And if he continues to up his athleticism, keep himself in great game shape, which is something he has made a real focus over the past year, he could be something special. Final thing, though, Jesse, we got to talk about Philippe Mesar. Now, some interesting stuff came out today from Tomasz Prokop on Twitter, who had an interview with Philippe Mesar, and there were some interesting quotes that I wanted to take straight from the Twitter. Go check out Tomasz Prokop's Twitter as if you want to see these for yourself. But Mesar, the first thing he said is, I'm leaving for Canada on August 8th. I should join the Canadiens in mid-August. They called me and said they would like me to come earlier and prepare with the coaches before the camp. He also said that I definitely have it in my mind that I want to play games in the NHL, but I'm not overly focused on it. I'm trying to work hard and do everything I can to seize my chance in the AHL. I'm not prioritizing the NHL right now. Now, we'll get into what he said about the Winnipeg trade in just a bit, Jesse, but it seems like he's in a really good mindset. It seems like the Habs have said to him, like, hey, focus on a good summer. You don't need to be at development camp. Focus on yourself. We're going to help you do what you need to do to make that next level. And I just love that investment they seem to have in him. And because they truly believe in him. He was a former first-round pick who has not had a great last 2 years. And I think there's a lot of room for him to improve and take that next step.
Yeah, there's been a lot of rumors around Philippe Mesar recently, whether it's about, trades we're going to get into, speculation of various sorts, right? But, with the Habs, they're wise not to give up on this player and believe that there's still a skilled player there. And apparently by these reports, it's like, that's, they believe that very much. I think it's going to be huge for Mesar. This is going to be a big camp coming up. The fact that he's going to get some time beforehand, probably with some of the player development guys. We're thinking, Paul Byron, we're thinking Adam Nichols, and the likes, right? Like, this is going to really help because for him, he just needs to kind of work on a couple things. And there's definitely a solid player there. And even though he didn't come to the developmental camp, they wanted a lot of the European guys to train overseas. And you have to feel for Philippe Mesar, it's getting in the gym and it's training. And it's like, there's so much about training. It's so important. They're like, no, we don't want you missing one day in the gym, right? Like, hit it up. You're going to have plenty of time on the ice, right? Get here a little bit early, get settled in. Josh, to be honest, I'm really excited to see Philippe Mesar in the AHL next year. I think that he, despite having a couple little road bumps here or there, I wouldn't be surprised for him to have a very good year in the AHL next year. We know there's up and downs, with prospects. So this is a player that I still have faith in.
I do too. And again, they had plans for him to play the power play in the AHL, but unfortunately things didn't work out. And I would say those plans are still there if they can, get him to maybe get to that next level. And he's quite the playmaker. And he actually said one of the things that he wants to do is really focus on taking more responsibility himself and shoot the puck more. That's what the Habs wanted him to do too. So we'll see. But the big thing that came out of this was what he had to say about the Winnipeg trade. He said, I have no idea where the information about Winnipeg came from or who wrote it. On the same day that it was being discussed, I was arranging my flight tickets to Montreal. No one from the club talked to me about a trade. Now, this is a bit interesting. Now, we didn't report on those trade topics when they first came out because it seemed a little suspicious. The sources were a little iffy. It couldn't really trace down the original source. We kind of left ourselves out of it, and I think it's a good thing we did because this whole saga was kind of crazy, Jesse. Seeing Philippe Mesar, and I think it was, Barron and another pick going over for Rutger McGroarty. To hear that he was booking his flight to Montreal, no one even mentioned anything to him, clearly states to me that this was just bogus. But it also states to me that, maybe what we thought Montreal had as an idea for Rutger McGroarty, maybe we don't even know anymore, because a lot of fans were saying that's a lot to pay for him. But now that we know that Mesar was very likely not involved at all, though maybe the Habs, front office was being very secretive, who knows? But I don't think so. I think now Kent Hughes, what he'd like to pay for these guys, has now gone back to being a secret. Just kind of a crazy situation altogether.
Yeah, Kent's MO is he likes to keep his cards close to his chest, right? We can sometimes kind of deduce, okay, what players do we have that might be traded? But in terms of players that Kent Hughes is going to go out and get, for sure we know the profile, right? But he really likes to call his own shots, when it comes to that. Keep it under wraps, obviously, for so many important reasons. It doesn't like to discuss to the media too much, give away too much information, for many a reason, right? To be honest, with the trade package there, I think that some people still would be okay. Maybe some people thinking it was a little bit too much, but I don't know. I think it's fair not to quite give up on this player yet, knowing that there could possibly be a very good player there still.
Who knows what's going to happen? You never know with these prospects. Sometimes they bloom later than you expect. I'm excited for Philippe Mesar. And while we did rank him pretty low on our prospect tier list, it's not to say we don't have any hope, and I still think his ceiling is quite high. And if you guys are hyped for Mesar, leave some love for him down below, because I think he's getting a lot of criticism, some of it warranted, but realistically, I think we should still be supportive of him. And like you said, Jesse, I'm really excited to see him in Laval, hopefully next season. But that'll do it for this episode of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Thank you all for watching every single day. It means a lot to us. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host, Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.